Sounds good. I'm looking at this calendar and nothing is making sense. I can't figure this out. I've overbooked things. Is there any way that you can take Max on Tuesday to Dr. Pelican at 4?
Honey, you know how hard it is for me to take off work early. I can't do that.
I know, but I have to meet with the OT, okay? They put Max with somebody completely incompetent, and I don't want him going with that person. It's just...
All right, fine.
Yeah?
I can take him, yeah.
Okay,
but if I have to leave work early on Tuesday, then you're going to have to cover Hattie's school night on Wednesday so I can work late.
Okay, but what about your son?
Have your daughter watch him.
She's got the election. She has to focus.
Okay, all right, let me crack this.
It makes no sense.
Let me look.
See? How can we be in two places at
My
once?
washer broke. Do you guys mind if I...
No. Make yourself at home.
Is that your schedule?
Yeah.
Put basketball in there. You haven't played in 3 months.
Yeah, I'll pencil it in. It's just that simple.
Well, my guess is that there's more than one person in this room who can identify with the calendar on that video as we walk through life at a very high speed. We're going to be talking about busyness and what that does to our soul as the service unfolds. But before we go there, I have some greetings to bring you. Many of you know that for the last 2 weeks, I've been on the other side of the world in Mali, West Africa. And I want to let you know that all the missionaries who we love and support send you all of their greetings, especially Dusty and Julia Reynolds, who came from this church and have spent the last 2 years in Mali. They wanted to especially send their greetings. And I want to give you just a very short report on what's going on there. Dusty and Julia, went to Mali in order to be able to start a business, a t-shirt making business called Sabbath, in order to be able to create income for Malian laborers, to be able to create jobs, to help stimulate their economy, and to gather people together and introduce them to Jesus in the context of a business as mission. And I just wanted to let you know it's going incredibly well there. They've got a beautiful factory, they've got great equipment, they've got outstanding managers, and Dusty and Julia are transitioning out, and in just about a month and a half, they'll be right back here in Omaha. And so there's just a ton to praise God for. Not only that, but today I am sporting one of the very first Sababu t-shirts off the press, if nothing else, to make you all jealous. So, yeah, thanks for clapping for that. That was good. Beyond that, the hospital is rocking and rolling. The new buildings that we've invested there. Some of you may not know that about 5 years ago, we began a fundraising campaign for this hospital for women who die in childbearing and for the kids that they're raising, and it's just growing. The 3 new buildings that we've sponsored have tripled the capacity of the hospital. Over the next 6 months, the number of doctors who are going to be there will grow from 2, where it's been for a long time, to 6. And they'll all be training doctors and training nurses, and there is a nurses training school coming in there. It's very exciting, and God is doing all kinds of great stuff to have an impact on that city in Kuchala, Mali, and it's because you were faithful to trust God before these things were reality. You had faith to see that happen, so I want to say congratulations to you and praise God for that, huh? Yeah. We visited the Bethel Bible School as well, which is a big part of our Double Your Impact campaign. And unlike the other 2, there is just a lot of work that needs to be done at the Bethel Bible School. We'll tell you more about that later, but I'm looking forward to 3 years from now, 5 years from now, coming back and giving a report from there of all the amazing change that we've seen in that place as students are able to learn the Bible, and pastors and nurses will be able to be trained in that Bible school. So my sense is that there's a huge need there, and we'll be seeing some more growth in the future. That's just my quick snapshot. There's going to be a lot more on December 5th. We'll do kind of a full Mali report at that time on the same weekend that African Children's Choir is coming. And just so you know, this is not just an African Children's Choir. This is the African Children's Choir, like the one that was highlighted on American Idol a couple of years back. They've been here before. They rock the house. So bring your friends and come for the full Mali report and the African Children's Choir December 5th. It's going to be an awesome, awesome service. All right, let's pray, and then we'll jump into the meat of our message. God, this morning we just want to come to give you honor and praise. We're glad that you're a God who communicates and that you want to do ministry deep in our souls. And so we pray, God, that you would. We pray that you would speak to our souls and enlighten our minds. Help us to understand your word and to obey you with all the things that you've told us to do. We just want to walk in obedience to you. So help us today as we reflect on caring for our souls, that we would, in fact, obey you. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, my message this morning starts off with a little bit of a poem. I know it's unusual, but that's what we're going to bring. I call this Dr. Seuss meets Life in Omaha. 5:30 a.m. Wake up, shake up, got to put on makeup. Before I can go out, I must start the wash machine. Workout, got to get the sweat out. Next, a diaper blowout. Oh, I need caffeine. Grab the kids, don't be cruel, dress and get them off to school. 8 a.m. Driving fast, go to work, hope the boss won't be a jerk. Cranky clients, mega corporate giants, got to make them happy or the boss will wear a frown. Email. Then some email until network goes down. Almost fall in the hall, think I need a Tylenol, running off to UPS so I can use the brown. Noon. Lunchtime, my time. Oh, how I love lunchtime. Need me to run an errand, boss? Sure, I'll do it now. Taco Bell, Runza, drive-thrus are so funza. Back to work and I think the copier is jammed. After lunch, sleepy, find the 5-hour energy. I need chocolate to get me through the day. 5 p.m. 5 o'clock drive time, listen to Becca on the line. Walmart, shopping cart, hope that frozen car will start. Kids are hungry, gotta make a meal. Mac and cheese, lean cuisine, another load in wash machine. After dinner, wash the plates and give the kids a bath. 8 p.m. Run upstairs, say your prayers, tuck in all the teddy bears. I could slow down but have to pay the bills. MUDOPPD, here's a bill from MTV. Get that checkbook running out of cash. Fold the clothes, stuff to do. I should write a thank you too. Clock says midnight, gotta get some sleep. Okay, mass confession here. How many of you can either identify with the calendar on the video or some part of this little Dr. Seuss poem? Let's see a show of hands. All right, if anyone around you is raising their hand, turn to them and say, you're too busy. Truth is, as a culture, we are addicted to action, busyness, and productivity. And it keeps us driving all day long and all night long. Ever since Thomas Alva Edison invented the light bulb, our workday has expanded later and later. We've lost our boundaries. We're busy all the time. It's interesting in our culture that people will ask the question, oftentimes as a form of greeting, hey, so you keeping busy? You ever notice that? And the right answer, you know the right answer, right? Oh, yeah, I got a load of things to do. I'm doing this and this and this. And you go down the litany of all the things that are happening. I've begun to take up a habit because I just don't like the idea that busyness is always the good thing to do and to be, of answering that question differently. Nearly every time someone asks me the question, keeping busy, I always answer them, nope, I'm actually pretty bored. Kicking up my feet, laying back, don't have much to do. You have something you can give me to do? I'm really looking for something. Because everybody knows, pastor of a church only works 30 minutes a week. So, I got plenty of stuff, plenty of time to do. Now, the truth is that busyness is really not our ally. Busyness, when it goes 7 days a week, all day long, can crowd out the work of God that should be happening inside our lives. As a matter of fact, running a fast pace 7 days a week is one of the most destructive things that can happen for our soul. And your soul really responds a lot like your body. It can get tired, it can get dirty, it can get withered and angry. And if you continue in the cycle of busyness, the face of your soul gets meaner and angrier, like Bo Pelini versus Texas A&M. It's not that you can't be busy sometimes. Everybody should be busy sometimes. As a matter of fact, work is something that's created by God. There was a good thing before the fall. It's part of what it is to be created in the image of God, is to be somebody who's a worker, who's productive, who's creative. But when we go over the edge and work all the time, it creates a deep wearing on our soul. And that's why God invented an idea. All the way from the beginning of creation, he invented an idea called Sabbath. Sabbath. Now, the Hebrew word for Sabbath is Shabbat, and because we have a foreign word in our vocabulary, it's our big word of the week. So everybody say the word Shabbat. Turn to the person next to you, say, you need Shabbat. That's good. You need Shabbat. And all of us need Shabbat. Now, that word Shabbat or Sabbath essentially means rest or ceasing. And the concept of Sabbath rest is the antidote to the busyness that plagues our lives. We see it written throughout the fabric of the Bible, beginning all the way in the beginning of the Bible, and then being highlighted in the law and in the prophets, ultimately in Jesus, and finally, in the end of times, Sabbath is mentioned as our ultimate destination. So this morning, what we're going to do is we're going to do a walkthrough, kind of a survey of what the Bible teaches about Sabbath. And just like the Bible begins in the beginning, so we are going to begin in the beginning. Turn your Bibles to Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 2. We'll see a little bit where the idea of Sabbath rest began. Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3 says this. Thus, the heaven and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work that he had been doing, so on the seventh day he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day, and he made it holy, because on it he rested from all of the work that was all the work of creating that he had done. So God gets to the end of his 6 days where he creates everything in the universe, and he establishes for us a pattern. It's a pattern of 6 days work and 1 day rest. And it's not because God was tired and he was burned out and he didn't have any creative juices left. As the infinite God, he's got infinite energy, but he knew those of us who are human beings would not have infinite energy, and he set us up to be able to live in a cycle or a rhythm of 6 days work and 1 day rest. And in order to be able to make sure that it was established in the very foundations of the universe, he modeled it himself on the days of creation. 6 days work, 1 day rest. And it's interesting how you note in all cultures all over the world, everybody has a 7-day week. It follows the natural pattern of God going all the way back to creation. Now, this has been translated not only as a pattern God established, but as a pattern that human beings should follow. It's one of those commands that's talked about all over the Bible. I found at least 140 times that following the Sabbath is reinforced both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And one of the most explicit places is in the book of Exodus. It's in the top 10 things God said you need to do to be a healthy person following me, better known as the 10 Commandments in Exodus chapter 20. So flip over to Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11. And we'll see one of the top 10 commands that God gave to humanity is all about this Sabbath day. Beginning at verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son, nor daughter, nor your manservant, or maidservant, or animals, or alien within your gates. In 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and he made it holy. This command gets even more explicit. One, it says very carefully, you should follow God's pattern of 6 days work and 1 day rest. And then beyond that, it talks explicitly about who should follow the pattern. It's not just you, but it's also your kids, your servants, even your animals. The fabric of the universe is designed in a pattern of 6 days work and 1 day rest. Now, I have not, in my 4.5 years here, ever taught on the concept of Sabbath before. It's just not something that's made it into the teaching rotation up till now. I've never done a survey to see how do people respond to the Sabbath day, how do they practice it, but I've got some guesses because I know you all pretty well. My guess is that for some of you, the idea of a Sabbath day is completely foreign. For some of you, it's a concept that's familiar to you, but not very much practiced. And some of you may be very familiar with it and may be very good about practicing it. But if I was to make my guess about the congregation in general, I would say that most in our congregation don't practice a Sabbath day with regularity and with discipline. If we were to look down the list of the 10 commandments and say which ones are most likely to be disobeyed, I would guess there would be 2 key ones that would be most likely to be disobeyed at Christ Community Church. One of them is the idea of not coveting, is probably pretty common, and then keeping the Sabbath day. My guess is that most people here violate the Sabbath day on most weeks. And God has designed us to be living according to this rhythm. It's a command that he's given us that we just can't ignore. Now, when God created the universe, he's got this 6 and 1 rhythm. You imagine what a drummer would sound like if he didn't have rhythm. I mean, imagine somebody who was leading worship here on Sunday morning decided, hey, I'm just going to pound away on the drums with no rhythm and no rest that's in the middle of it. I'm just bang, 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 bang on all the different drums, on all the cymbals. It just keeps on crashing over and over. You wouldn't want to come back for more. But if that drummer, like our great drummers here, has a sense of rhythm, there will always be some hitting of the drums and then some rest. And that's the kind of pattern that makes you start bobbing your head and tapping your feet and saying, that's music. I want to come back for more. So here's a rhythm. Okay, listen to this rhythm. Join me. Good, you guys did a good job. That is the Sabbath rhythm. 6 on, 1 off. 6 on, 1 off. It's the way that God designed us all to live. And you will be better music of God if you live according to the rhythm that He has created your life in. And this rhythm includes 1 day per week that's a 24-hour period that's designed for 2 things, rest and worship. We see that in the command in Exodus. It's set apart for the Lord. So that's the worship part of it. And you're to cease from all of your work and all of your labors. That's the rest part of it. So on the Sabbath day, 2 things become priorities, rest and worship. And I'm going to tell you my application for this morning's message right now at this point, so you can be thinking about it. My application is to have a Sabbath day, a 24-hour period where you rest from your labors and worship God. That you do it once, and then you do it again the next week, and then you do it again every week for the rest of your life. Now, this is going to be a huge challenge for us because there are many cultural forces that go against us. An addiction to productivity, workforces that can stress us out, youth sports that happen to fall at all of the wrong times. These are forces that can keep us from keeping a Sabbath day, and you'll need to have discipline. What that means is that at certain times you're going to have to say no to something that's good in order to say yes to something that's better. It means that you'll have to resolve in your mind that you, in fact, are going to honor God in all of His commands, including the command to keep a Sabbath day. The other 6 days, what this also means, is that you may have to stack a little bit of extra workload into the other 6 days. Because the pattern of most Americans is to work really hard at your job 5 days a week, and then on your weekends work really hard around the house. And instead of doing that, one of those days needs to be set aside. And that means you work extra hard on the other 6 days in order to assure that you can do what's necessary and have that period of rest. It is a reordering of your life. But this kind of patterned rhythm and lifestyle has huge benefits. See, God doesn't give us rules and laws in order to make us miserable. He gives us rules and laws in order to give us life the way that He intended it to be. That's what Jesus came for. He said, I've come that you might have life and have it in all of its fullness. And He reinforced the idea of the Sabbath because He wants us to have that kind of life. Here's some of the benefits that come from living a patterned or rhythm lifestyle, including a Sabbath. Busy suburbanites benefit from not having a fragmented sense of self. Productivity addicts will benefit because they find, or those who find more value in work than they do in God. Activists who need to rest, or who need rest to recharge for the next run of their activism. Those who have lost their passion, who are living by an unbroken rote repetition. Those who can't find priorities and need perspective. Those who long for a deeper life with God and with their family. Those who are disgusted with empty and formal religion and want to instead live a life of adoring God. These are all the people that will benefit from living this life of Sabbath. My guess is that each of you fall into at least one of those categories. I didn't practice a Sabbath day the entirety of my life, even the entirety of my ministry life. When Kelly and I first went on staff with InterVarsity, a campus organization that we went on staff with right after college, we loved what we were doing. We loved our students, we loved our job, we loved getting to do ministry with the best hours of our day. And what that meant is that we wound up working probably 70 hours a week, 7 hours a day, constantly with students because we loved what we were doing. We were young, we were energetic, we were passionate, we had no kids, we had nothing better to do, and so we did it. We gave ourselves away in ministry. But after about 3 years of doing that, we found that our passion levels were winding down. And some of the things that we loved, we started hating. We began to grow resentful about the things we used to be passionate about, and we were wondering what was going on. The truth is, we weren't caring for our souls or running at a pace that would sustain for the long run. So one of our directors, who was very passionate about observing the Sabbath, came and talked us through that at one point. And he convinced us to begin observing a Sabbath rest every single week. And it was in that year, when I was about 25 years old, that we started observing a Sabbath rest. It was amazing the difference that it made in the other 6 days of the week, when you unplug from your work for 1 day a week. And I'm convinced that right now I'm still in ministry because of the hard conversation that one of my directors had with me and with Kelly about keeping a Sabbath day. And it doesn't matter if you're in ministry or janitorial work or banking or law. If you spend 70 hours a week, if you spend 7 days a week working, it will wear on your soul. It'll deplete you. It'll put you in a very bad place. So practice a Sabbath day for the sake of your own soul. So the next question is practically, how do you go about doing a Sabbath day? Well, the Jewish people in the ancient Hebrew culture, the Israelites, would practice a Sabbath on a regular basis, starting off on Friday evening. It would start just before sundown. Technically, 18 minutes before sundown is when they would light 2 candles. And the woman of the house would light these 2 candles as a way to remember 2 words: observe the Sabbath and remember the Lord your God. To rest and to worship. The 2 key principles that began. Since there was to be no kindling of fires on the Sabbath day, this would be a fire that would need to last them for the next 24 hours. And so they would light these flames just before the Sabbath day would begin. And in doing so, they would offer one another blessings, they would pray, they would read from the Torah, and they would engage in a Sabbath sleep, where they would rest throughout the night and enjoy so they could wake up refreshed the next morning. And for 24 hours, they would practice various forms of worship and rest until sundown the next night, at which time they would light a couple of more candles, and that would symbolize the next 6 days of work that would be starting up. An interesting thing happened, though, when Jesus rose from the dead. And that is the New Testament community who practiced Sabbath on the 7th day, on the Friday night through Saturday for a long time, all of a sudden changed their time of worship to being Sunday morning to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. It was a cataclysmic shift in worship principles, and since then, people have debated, should we have our Sabbath day on Friday night through Saturday night, or should we do it all day on Sunday, the day of the resurrection? And in my study, studying both Old Testament and New Testament related to this, I've come to the conclusion that it just really doesn't matter that much. Doesn't matter too much if you pick Saturday or Sunday. Doesn't matter a whole lot if you say the day starts when I wake up, or the day starts when the sun goes down, or the day starts at noon. What's important is this patterned rhythm that you have 24 hours in a row that's set aside for rest and for worship, to live the way that God intended you to be able to live. So you're having a Sabbath day, you've set the time aside. The question you might ask is, what should you do on a Sabbath day? What should you do on a Sabbath day? Well, let me start off with one thing you should not do. One thing you should not do is make it about rules and limits. This was a huge mistake that the people of Israel made as they were unfolding their Sabbath principles, is they started making it all about the rules. And you can understand why they might make it about the rules, because there were huge consequences for Sabbath breakers. I mean, in the Old Testament, they took Sabbath keeping very seriously. Here's one example. This comes from Exodus chapter 30, beginning at verse 14. It says this: "Observe the Sabbath because it is holy to you. Anyone who desecrates it must be put to death. Whoever does any work on that day must be cut off from his people." This was not a command that they messed around with. It had huge consequences. And for a variety of important reasons, you know, the death penalty for not observing the Sabbath doesn't apply to those of us who are under the new covenant, which is good news to all of us who are Sabbath breakers and prefer to live. But it shows why they might take this very seriously and wrap a lot of rules around it. Here's what those people did in order to make sure that they didn't violate the Sabbath. They came up with 39 work categories that you were not allowed to do. And here they are: carrying, burning, extinguishing, finishing, writing, erasing, cooking, washing, sewing, tearing, knotting, untying, shaping, plowing, planting, reaping, harvesting, threshing, winnowing, selecting, sifting, grinding, kneading, combing, spinning, dyeing, chain stitching, which I'm sure all of you were doing yesterday, warping, weaving, unraveling, building, demolishing, trapping, shearing, slaughtering, skinning, tanning, smoothing, and marking, which was particularly targeted at me. I'm sure that last one, marking. Yeah, that was bad. I'm sorry. And they would take these 39 things and then make them even more explicit. Like there were rules about exactly how much weight you could carry and not carry, about how many steps you could take during a day. I always wondered what happens if you run out of steps at the end of the day, but you left the light on in the other room. You know, can you take like really big steps to go and turn it off? Is that okay? But they had these rules that they were convinced they had to follow. Types of knots were established, like you could tie a bow knot because that's what you use to tie your shoes, but you couldn't tie a double half hitch because that's what you use in order to tie an oxen to the cart. And they would come up with a variety of different rules that you could and could not do. And Sabbath keeping became all about rule keeping. I don't know if you guys have ever been in families that have had kind of odd Sabbath rules. I know there was one family that I grew up with that had very strict Sabbath rules. And the kid could never come over to my house to play because it was against the Sabbath rules. And in his family, growing up, they had no visiting, no video games, no sports, no TV, no desserts, and no caffeine, curiously enough. So he was my friend, and I said, okay, well, I'll go and hang out at your house one Sabbath day that I was going over to his house. And what I found was a bunch of bored people with caffeine headaches and nothing to do. And I looked around, and honestly, they were miserable. I thought, this cannot be what God meant when he created the Sabbath day. I mean, if you get into a Sabbath day and you're miserable because of the list of things you can't do, you're doing it wrong. If you get to the end of a Sabbath day and you feel stressed out or guilty, you're doing it wrong. The Sabbath day was meant to be a day that you look forward to, a day of delight, a day of joy, a day where you get to connect with God. All that the legalists did was they created another form of work as they were creating a Sabbath. Well, contrast that to this picture. As a matter of fact, why don't you guys go ahead and close your eyes and just kind of let your heads go back. And I want you to picture doing this kind of a list of things on a day. Long walks, a picnic in the park, worshiping God with your friends, playing games with the kids, taking naps, love making if you're married, unhurried time in the Bible. Think about that list and how it stands in contrast to the busyness of the poem or the craziness of the calendar. How does that feel? Okay, you can come back now. Poke the person next to you if they fell asleep during that moment. You see, God designed us to be able to have a day that brings joy. Do some of these things for your Sabbath day. Number one, unplug from your vocation. Unplug from your vocation. Whatever you do, whatever you get paid to do for your regular work a day, unplug from that. For me, that means no email, no voicemail, no computers, no checking in on what's happening at work, no texting. I try and stay divorced from those things on my Sabbath day as a part of my rest. And even people here at the church know when my Sabbath day is, and unless there's a terrible emergency, don't even try or get a hold of me during that time. And I respect their Sabbath days in a similar kind of a way. Make space on that day for God, and make space for family. Make space to live at a slower pace of life. Enjoy conversation, Bible study, worship, creation, rest. Some people on Sabbath days like to make special meals and enjoy them together as a family. Some, that's work for them, so they like to avoid special meals and just eat some soup that they prepared the day before, or natural things like granola and breads and fruits and other things that just are low preparation kinds of items. Take naps, play games, worship, enjoy the day. Now, some people have questions about, okay, well, what about other things that may be like productive things, but they're not what I do for my job? Can you do those things? Like, for example, can you do gardening on a Sunday? And I would say it depends on who you are. Wendell Nelson is one of our pastors here. He's a great guy, and he oftentimes talks about doing gardening and landscaping in his new property as being able to be co-creating with God. He says, I feel close to God when I'm doing these things, because I get to partner with him in creating amazing stuff. And for Wendell, it's a great Sabbath activity to do gardening on his Sabbath day. If you're someone who owns a landscaping business or you mow lawns for a living, gardening would not be a restful activity for you. It would be something that you should avoid. Reading could be a similar idea. If you're a mechanic, it'd be a great idea to read on the Sabbath day. If you're someone who's a researcher for a living, reading might be the thing that you need to take a break from. Oftentimes, those who work with their head during the week love to work with their hands on the Sabbath day, and those who work with their hands during the week love to work with their head during the Sabbath day. You need to know what gives you rest. As a matter of fact, there's two key questions that I would ask at any time if I was asking, is this a legitimate thing to do on the Sabbath day? Question number one is it connected with your regular vocation? If it's connected with your regular vocation, don't do it. Don't do it. Second question is, does it bring delight to your soul? Does it connect you closer to God and family? Does it make you a more loving person? Does it bring joy to your heart? If the answer is yes, then it's legitimate to do on the Sabbath day. That's what it's designed for. As a matter of fact, there are some people who love the Sabbath and they just bring out special food, special toys, special games, special activities that are reserved for the Sabbath day in order to make it more special for their family and friends. The Sabbath day is a day to do what we say we're all about. It's a day that's all about loving God and loving people. If you get caught up in the rules, you're doing it wrong. Now, Jesus got this all very right as he talked about the Sabbath day. We see Jesus encountering some Sabbath naysayers in Mark chapter 2. Jesus and his disciples were walking through some fields, and they were fields of grain, and Jesus and the disciples were hungry, so they plucked some heads of grain, they rolled it in their hands in order to separate the grain from the chaff, popped it in their mouth, and they ate as they went along. Well, some of the Pharisees, the Sabbath rule keepers, they saw exactly what was happening there, and they said, "Aha! You have broken the Sabbath day." And Jesus responded to them, first with some examples from the Old Testament, but then with a couple of very provocative statements. In Mark chapter 2, verse 27, he says this. He says, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." If you get caught up in rule keeping on the Sabbath, you're doing it wrong. Because your life is not to be molded by Sabbath rules. Instead, the Sabbath is a gift from God to you. Notice that Jesus said the Sabbath, did not say that the Sabbath is irrelevant or should not be practiced, but instead that it's a gift for all of us whose souls need to be recharged, which is every single one of us. That the Sabbath is not our master, instead we are the masters of the Sabbath. And then Jesus took the conversation up even another level. Because all these Pharisees were bothered that Jesus broke one of their rules on the Sabbath, Jesus takes it to the whole next level. In his next comment, Mark 2:28, he says, "So the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath." Now imagine yourself being a Jewish person who has kept the Sabbath meticulously one day a week to honor God and to rest for every day your entire life, and some guy comes up and says, "I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. I'm the master of the Sabbath. I'm the one who wrote the rules. So let me tell you how they should be properly interpreted." When Jesus crashed into planet Earth, he didn't crash in simply as a visitor or a good teacher, but he crashed in as the master of the universe, as the Lord of the Sabbath, as the one who's to teach us the way to live life the right way, and eventually to die on our behalf so our sins can be forgiven and to raise from the dead. And these Pharisees had their very first exposure to the one who claimed to have power over everything, even the Sabbath day that they worshiped on. And he says, this is the right way to do it. And so we follow the model of Jesus. But more than just rest and worship and enjoying the time, more than practicing it right, being in the Sabbath day is practice. It's practice for a life that is to come after the resurrection. Our future is talked about as a Sabbath rest in Hebrews chapter 4. So if you turn to Hebrews chapter 4, you'll see nearly the whole chapter is defining how our destiny is ultimately for a Sabbath rest. We may as well practice for it now. Here's kind of the climax of Hebrews chapter 4. It's verses 8 through 11. It says, "For if Joshua had given them rest, God would not have spoken later about another day. There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from his own work, just as God did from his. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest, so that no one will fail by following their example of disobedience." In other words, what he's saying is, you remember back when Joshua led the people across the Jordan River from out of the desert into the promised land, it was a really good thing, but that was not their ultimate stopping point. There was still work after that time. There was still land to be conquered, battles to be fought. There was still politics that were happening. There were still controversies between various nations, and they continued on for thousands of years. Joshua did not lead the people into their ultimate rest, but there is a rest that's coming for all of us. For all of us who align ourselves with God, for all of us who trust in Jesus to be the one who forgives us and leads our life. After we die, we'll be raised from the dead and we'll be headed towards a Sabbath rest, a Sabbath rest, an ultimate rest that God has planned for us that's life-giving and relational and joy-filled and restful. And when you take a Sabbath day here on planet Earth, you're practicing for the joy that is to come when we finally enter into the ultimate Sabbath rest. It's as if this planet Earth, is still on its cycle of 6 days of work. And when Jesus comes back again to judge the world, he will take his people into a Sabbath rest that'll be the representation of the seventh day that we'll be able to rest with God forever. So my challenge to you today is a really simple challenge. It's this: set apart 24 hours for Sabbath rest. It may be Monday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It may start in the morning, afternoon, evening. The mechanics aren't the important thing, but setting aside a full day for rest and worship is important. Enjoy God and people and rest. Begin by marking your time somehow with a meal, a lighting of a candle, maybe just not setting your alarm clock and sleeping in as late as your body needs to. Rest, worship, enjoy the day. And then reap the benefits of it. I mean, the benefits include your physical health, your soul health, an increase of love for the people around you and their love for you. It includes joy over depression, being able to get perspective and prioritize your life for the rest of your week as you have time to rest and reflect, and being able to see your life with God's perspective. Our Sabbath rest is commanded, and it's beneficial, and we need to be those who practice it. Amen? Amen. Let's pray together. God, thank you so much for the way that you've ordered the universe around your priorities and principles. Thanks that you love us and that you made us and that you've given us hope. And we pray, God, that you'd help us just to obey what you tell us to do, that we would take a day a week and set it aside for Sabbath rest. And by doing that, we would have our souls cared for in deep ways, that we'd know you more, we'd love each other more, and we'd reap the benefits of life the way that you've intended us. Protect us, God, from the busyness of our culture that seems to go on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and help us to enter into your rest, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.